It started with a dare. My cousin Emily was always trying to prove how fearless she was, so when she found an old Ouija board at a flea market, she bought it without hesitation. It was dusty. The planchette cracked down one side, and the board itself was worn, almost scorched, around the edges. It looked like it had survived a fire. A sticker on the back said, "Do not use alone," in faded ink. She brought it to our cabin that summer, just a small place in the mountains our family used for weekend getaways. There was no Wi-Fi, no signal, just the forest, the lake, and old wooden walls that creaked for no reason. On the second night, a thunderstorm rolled in. Bored and restless, Emily pulled the Ouija board out of her backpack with a grin. "Let's talk to the spirits," she said. I hesitated. My uncle, her dad, had warned us both. He once told us our family had a history with things we shouldn't mess with, but she laughed that off like always. We lit a few candles and set the board on the old dining table. Emily placed the planchette in the center and motioned for me to join her. Reluctantly, I did. Our fingers barely touched it when she asked, "Is there anyone here with us?" "Nothing," she repeated the question. Then, the planchette moved, slowly, jerkily. We both accused each other of doing it, but I swear on everything, I wasn't. It spelled Y-E-S. I felt my stomach twist. "Who are you?" Emily asked. The planchette moved faster this time. I looked at her. "Do we know an Alex?" She shrugged. "Not really. Maybe it's a random spirit." Then it spelled something else. Emily grinned. "Let's go check it out." I didn't want to, but she was already grabbing a flashlight. The basement in that cabin had always creeped me out. It was cold, musty, and had a single hanging light bulb that flickered constantly. The kind of place you didn't go unless you had to. We crept down the stairs, flashlight beam shaking. The storm outside thudded against the roof. When we reached the bottom, there was nothing. Just old furniture, boxes, and the broken heater. But then Emily pointed. The Ouija board. It was sitting on the floor. We had left it upstairs. "What the hell?" I whispered. "Did you bring it down?" "No," she said, eyes wide. "I swear." The planchette was on the word goodbye. We stood frozen for what felt like minutes. Then the light bulb above us exploded, literally shattered with a sharp pop. We screamed and bolted up the stairs, slamming the door behind us. That night, we barely slept. We thought it was over. But the next morning, when we tried to leave, we couldn't find the car keys. We searched everywhere, every drawer, bag, coat pocket, nothing, until we checked the basement door again. The keys were hanging there, nailed into the wood, with the word "stay" scratched below in jagged letters. We left the board behind, but I swear it didn't want us to go. And I'm not even sure we really did. When my twin brother Logan died in a car accident, something inside me broke. It wasn't just grief. It was like losing half my soul. I'd wake up in the middle of the night reaching across the room to talk to him before remembering he wasn't there. My chest ached with a constant hollowness. Everyone kept saying the same thing. He's in a better place. He'd want you to move on. But how could I move on when I still felt him, like a static hum in the back of my mind? That's when I started researching after-death communication. Not the fake ghost hunting stuff, the real old rituals, mediums, seances. And then I found it, a handcrafted Ouija board being sold by a woman in upstate Vermont. She claimed it wasn't a toy, that it had seen too much. The planchette was carved from bone, real bone. I bought it. It arrived in a plain black box with no return address. Inside was a note written in shaky cursive. Never ask the same spirit more than 3 questions. Never ask for proof. Never say goodbye unless you're sure they've left. I ignored all of it. On Logan's birthday, I waited until everyone in the house was asleep, lit a circle of candles in my room, laid the board in front of me. The air felt heavy, like the world had slowed. My voice shook. "Logan, are you here?" Silence. Then a soft creak from my closet. The planchette began to move. Tears streamed down my face. "Is it really you?" "Ita-S." I asked him to prove it. His childhood nickname, the name of the video game only we used to play, what we buried behind the shed when we were 10. Every answer was perfect. Then I asked, "Where are you?" The planchette paused, then moved. B-E-A-G-E-N-D-E-O-U. I froze. I didn't turn around, I couldn't. Instead, I whispered, "What do you want?" It slid slowly to S-T-A-E. I felt something cold pass through me, like wind and static at the same time. The candles flickered violently. I quickly pushed the planchette to goodbye, but it didn't move. Instead, the planchette began to spell I-N-E-V-E-R-L-E-F-T. I pushed myself away from the board. The candles blew out on their own. The next morning, my phone was full of new photos. Photos of me, sleeping, taken from the corner of the room. There was a shadow behind me in each one, slowly getting closer in every frame. I deleted them, reset my phone, burned the board, but it didn't end. At night, the air around me sometimes shifts. My bed creaks as if someone sits beside me. And sometimes, when I walk past a mirror, I see 2 reflections. I still hear Logan's voice sometimes, but it's twisted, hollow, like he's underwater or not alone. People say Ouija boards are just wood and ink, but I know better now. Goodbye doesn't mean it's over. Sometimes it's just the beginning. It started as a joke. A stupid winter break snowed-in dare. My cousin Tyler and I were stuck at our grandparents' farmhouse, a creaky old relic surrounded by frozen fields and decades of silence. No Wi-Fi, no cable, just 2 bored teens and a bunch of dusty boxes in the attic filled with outdated board games and yellowing books. That's where we found it. A Ouija board. But not like the mass-produced ones you see in stores. This one was carved from dark, cracked wood. The letters weren't printed. They were scorched into the surface. And the planchette? It wasn't plastic. It looked handmade, splintered at the edges, and cold to the touch like it had been buried in ice. Tyler, being the impulsive idiot he is, grinned and said, "Let's wake some ghosts." We brought it down to the basement, the worst place we could have chosen. Dim, barely lit by a flickering single bulb, with exposed brick walls and shelves lined with mason jars full of God knows what. The air down there always smelled like rust and mold. We lit some candles, sat cross-legged on the concrete floor, and placed our fingers on the planchette. "Is anyone here?" I asked, half mocking. Nothing happened for a full 2 minutes. Tyler cracked jokes. I rolled my eyes, the usual. Then, the candle next to me flickered violently, and the planchette moved. Just slightly, a twitch. "Did you do that?" I asked, suspicious. Tyler shook his head. I could tell he wasn't messing around anymore. We asked again, "Is someone here?" It did." I laughed nervously. "Who?" S-A-M-U-L. Tyler went pale. That was our grandfather's name. He passed away nearly 10 years ago in this very house. Still trying to keep calm, I asked, "What do you want?" The planchette jerked and spelled U-G-I. We didn't understand. Was it asking for laughter? Was it laughing at us? Tyler said, "Let's stop." But I asked one more question. The one that ruined everything. Where are you right now? The planchette started to move. B-A-S-E-M-E-N-T. The basement. With us, one of the candles blew out. We both jumped back. Tyler kicked the board across the floor. The planchette stayed perfectly still. That night, I woke up to the sound of laughing. Not from the TV, not from outside, from the vent in my room. The laugh was broken, croaky, like a child mimicking a laugh they didn't understand. The hair on my arm stood up. The next morning, we buried the board under 2 feet of snow behind the shed. 2 days later, we found it leaning against our bedroom door. Dry, warm, untouched by the snow. We tried burning it. It wouldn't catch fire. We smashed the planchette and threw it into the woods. That night, the laughing came back, louder this time, echoing up the basement stairs. Grandma wouldn't talk about it. But when I mentioned the board, she grew stiff and said, "You open the door. Don't expect it to close for you." We begged our parents to take us home early. They agreed. I thought it was over. But a few months later, while staying in my dorm, I woke up at 3:13 a.m. to a voicemail. It was blank, just faint static, and something underneath it. If you listened closely, you could hear a laugh, the same broken wheeze from the basement. Since then, I've heard it more than once. Sometimes in crowds, sometimes when I'm alone in the shower, sometimes just before I fall asleep. The board is gone, but the laughter, it followed me. And every time I hear it, it's closer. If you made it this far, thank you for spending your night with us. If these stories gave you chills, there's plenty more waiting. Don't forget to subscribe to Night Fear Stories for new terrifying tales every single night. Sleep well, if you can.